Hello, and welcome to Bringing Your Brilliance to the World with the Brenda Lynn Podcast. Today, I am thrilled to have my mentor and friend with us talking about some really interesting stuff. I'd just like to introduce you to Majesty-All-MIGHTY AliNICOLE WOW. And she's known as the ultimate multi-hyphenate all-trades authority. She's cross-trained in over 200 areas, and she's published over 300 works and created over 1,000 online platforms. She has been a busy lady, and she serves different industries under her Wow, She Does It All brand platform. She's passionate about helping multi-creatives own and embody their own authentic brand and empire expression for high-end success by leveraging their life as a niche to serve several different industries. Welcome, AliNICOLE. I am thrilled to have you here. You've certainly made a huge difference in helping me branch out and embrace my authentic nature. So welcome. The topic for today's discussion will be discover your affluent, authentic-preneur branding advantage. So what do we have to say about that, AliNICOLE?
Well, thank you, first of all, so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And, you're one of my favorite individuals. And so I'm so thrilled to be here with you and excited to talk about this very intriguing topic because it's one that's much needed and one of the overlooked aspects of entrepreneurship that most don't get to explore because they don't really know a lot about this particular focus. So I'm excited to be here to talk about it.
Yeah, well, it's like you say, it's the changing world. This is very different from the way that most of us have been trained to pick a niche and, the narrower, the better. And that's who you show up in the world as. And what I love with working with you is being able to call on all of those different aspects of my life and bringing them into a business focus.
Absolutely. And that is what it's about. And so I'm excited to talk about this because being able to leverage the whole of yourself allows you to be more expansive. And it also allows you to demonstrate your life mastery through your evolutionary process. And when individuals niche down, they are really confined to only being identified as a person who is just about this specific thing, where there's so much more to individuals because we're multifaceted individuals. And so when we are just confined to just operating in a one-dimensional focus, it definitely is constricting as it relates to impact and income.
Absolutely. And what I find and what I've really become aware of doing this work with you is that I might think that my niche is this narrow little focus, but parts of me always work their way in to that focus. And I realized how intermingled my life is. All of my skills with raising kids affects my work as a CFO. My work as a CFO definitely impacted the way I ran my family and the finances and the way I taught my kids. And, my art played a piece in that, and my writing plays a piece in that. And you just can't legitimately separate out those different aspects of your being and be authentic about it.
Right, absolutely. Because being able to leverage the whole of yourself is what allows you to be expressive. And that's something that we'll talk about because one of the things that I teach in branding is about being a brand expression versus a traditional brand. And so even though we do have these different categories of who we are, but the thing about it is that individuals won't necessarily know that we have all these different things if there aren't certain aspects about us that actually demonstrate that. And so that's where being able to bring your authenticity to the table is going to serve to your higher advantage, because that allows you to be what is the true definition of even authenticity is when there can be this allness about who you are, that at least people know that there's something about you that they can get different things from, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And the other thing is when you start tapping into that allness of your being,
Mhm.
the audience that you can serve with that starts to expand. Where
Right.
I worked within my finance career, I worked with high-end CEOs and
Mhm.
corporate executives, and raising my family and dealing with kids was over in a different compartment, but never the twain shall meet. Now I just like everything that I do serves multiple different dimensions of
Right.
target market. So I
Exactly.
can take something that I teach to corporate executives and I can reformat it and teach it to
Mhm.
kids in a different
Absolutely.
language, a different format, but it just really opens up the broadens the spectrum of the impact that I have in the world.
And that's what it's most about, right? Is being
Yeah.
able to make a maximum impact. And those who are in business certainly want to be able to expand themselves in business from an entrepreneurial standpoint, because in the digital world, you definitely have to stand out and not just be in the sea of sameness. Because when you're in the sea of sameness, that means you're in a pool of competition, so to speak. When you can distinguish yourself in a very unique way, then people can come to you, yes, for specific things, so to speak, but they make you their only viable option because others don't display that. And when you can bring your allness to the table as a brand, then you become this one-stop shop, if you will, that people can come to know, like, and trust and want to do business with you on multiple levels. So they go from one, I don't say extreme in a sense, but they can go from one department of you into others. So you become like this, your own mall in a sense. And we'll get to talking about that. But I think it would be great if we actually can talk a little bit about being able to leverage your life as a niche, because I know that individuals are probably thinking, well, how do I bring all these different elements to what I do? And do I
Yeah.
actually show up in this way by putting all of what I do on one particular site or so, so would you like to talk about that?
I would. I would.
Okay,
Oh,
great.
do you want me to share a bit of my experience
Well,
on that, or do you have something that you want to say first to set the
Well,
stage?
I can just set the premise, and
Yeah.
then definitely, you can share in terms of how you've been able to leverage different
Yeah.
aspects of your life. So just from kind of a foundational premise is that in terms of looking at your life, I leverage my life as a niche. When you look at your life as a niche, that's just you being able to bring the wholeness of you. And there are these different aspects of you that can serve different individuals, and they're on some very basic and common levels, but then there's the higher levels of your expertise. So a lot of times, Brenda Lynn, as you know, people look at when they are providing service to others, they try to look at where they're most skilled at or what they think is their expertise. But when you leverage your life, you can leverage different stages of your life. So just like if you have a hobby or you have a passion or so, you're able to share that and even create content and products around something of that nature.
Yeah.
Different areas of your life, you don't have to be an expert in. You can be one or two steps ahead of someone, and you can create something around that level. Or where you're kind of an intermediate authority, you can create something around that level. And then those levels where you are actually, your expert, high level expertise, so to speak, then you can create from that. But when you are using your life, you're just pulling from the different aspects and areas of your life, and you don't necessarily look at all of those as something you've had to have a degree in or a certification. It's just, where can you help add value to someone else? What is something that you know that someone else doesn't know? Or how can you empower them? How can you encourage them? And it doesn't matter whether it's self-care, again, whether it's a hobby, whether it's a passion, whether it's being a parent. You just look at different areas of your life and see how you can benefit others.
Absolutely. And everybody has so many different facets of their being that they can
Yes.
draw on when they start to really open their mind and think of this from a broader perspective than just, this is my career, this is what I have my degree in, and this is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And you can start broadening that out and look at all of the things that you do that enhance life for somebody. The
Right.
cooking that you do that enhances life for your kids, or the entertaining that you do that enhances things for your friends. And like, how many people do you impact in a day that's way outside of what you think is
Right.
your niche specialty?
Right. Right.
And
Right. And
start
so,
looking at that. And how can you have
uh-huh.
fun? To me, it's just all about fun when I start tapping into these, like my finance stuff was more of a duty,
Right.
and it produced a
Right.
good income. I liked being successful in it, but doing the work was work. When I tap into these other facets of my being, and my writing and my art and my cooking and
Mhm.
my sports out in nature, when I tap into all of those things, they're just pure fun, and they
Right.
bring a
Right.
totally different energy. And there's things
Mhm.
that I learn from those. There's things that I can teach from those experiences.
Mhm. Mhm.
And but they come in a different energy because it's coming from that energy of joy.
Right. 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 And
So,
we certainly need more of that, right? And
yeah, absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
yeah,
So,
and I think that people, or I believe I should say that people don't really find what they do as joyful. And one of the reasons why is because they aren't being able to have the full expression of who they
yeah.
are, because there's, again, that one-dimensional aspect of here's my job, here's what I do, then here's my role of being a parent, and all these different categories. And again, all of those different categories have different levels of fulfillment, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
And they're all important. They're all
They're
important.
all
But
vital. Absolutely.
the
They're
thing
all
that you'll
vital.
find is that when you bring joy into one aspect,
Hmm.
it's pervasive. It starts to, all of a sudden, when I was experiencing joy with my painting or my writing, all of a sudden the work that I was doing in finance, that I was burning out doing, because I did it for so many years, but all of a sudden it wasn't as heavy as it was, because I brought that energy and lightness of joy and
Right.
fun to that aspect of it. It wasn't encompassing my whole entire life. There was all these other aspects that had come to life as well.
Hmm. Right.
So,
And so, with that being said, when individuals can start to look at um, the embodiment of themselves as an empire, which, I'll talk about that a little bit before we close out, is that you have these different levels that you can, again, be able to produce content. And I'll give an example of how easy this can be. I like to use the term divine rendezvous, because that's a lot of times what's happening for me, especially if I'm out somewhere, even in the online space, where you rendezvous with someone about a particular focus or so. And for me, because I have created so much, right? I
yeah.
have something like for everything, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And again, because I leverage my life as a niche. And so a story that I like to share often during trainings or even talks like this is, I remember it's been many years ago that I was on this kind of elite shuttle, if you will. It's a different form of public transportation. And
Yeah.
I was sitting next to, we were close in age, and she was a single mother, and she had gone back to school, and she was kind of having a down day in a sense. And we started talking about self-love and, being able to focus on her self-love and well-being. And so she found me to be knowledgeable about this. And she's just like, wow, and then I told her, I said, well, I have publications on this particular topic. And like, wow, you're an author. So that was a whole nother
Mhm.
conversation. But anyway, she ended up asking me where could she find my works. And so I, shared with her, and she ended up buying like the series that I had at the time. So she didn't even just get that one publication.
Right.
And so for me, it's random, or I just call them divine rendezvous, going in the bank or in the grocery store,
Mhm.
different conversations. And because I've created content from different aspects and areas of my life, then I have something pretty much for any and everything that you can think of.
Yeah.
And it just is organically happening. And so I'm able to just use my life in that way to make an impact and an income. And even if I'm not directing them to a product, I can direct them to a blog site that I have
Yeah.
that has information and, things of value for them to avail themselves to. So it begins to be that easy. So do I have to put all of this on one particular website where everybody can come to and know? In the beginning, I was not doing that, and I wasn't training people to do that before I started teaching about building out marketplaces, so to speak. I would teach individuals how to create different platforms on some different subsites, and you're familiar with that process because you've been through the process of creating different platforms on different sites that you can send people to.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that it's all in one place that can confuse individuals when you are just trying to maybe have a core focus on a particular topic or a particular brand.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it gets to be that, yeah, kind of that seamless of it's just a natural way of being. So Brenda Lynn, can we talk a little bit about there's a process that I like to share. It's called the Royal Flush of Affluent Brand and Empire Authenticity.
Awesome.
Um, and it's not really a process in a sense, it's really 5 core demonstrations that I believe will help individuals to set up a winning hand, so to speak, for
Yeah.
success. And I think it's very important to share this, especially when we are looking at being authentic, being able to bring all of who you are and show up at different times. So actually, before I share those, I feel guided to just mention that in terms of your authentic expression in this way, is that you don't necessarily have to let everybody know that you do all of these different things. It's just that at any given time, if an experience presents itself, can you be cross-functional or multi-mission in your way of being to shift into that role? And so going back to what we were talking about earlier, Brenda Lynn, about not being focused on one niche, you have to be in the moment and allow your mission in the moment to present itself. And then that's the functionality that you show up in. Now, when you have different products that can assist other people, then that makes it even easier because you don't have to get into talking and to explaining. You can give a segue of something that sets them up, and then you can refer them to, to a platform. So your allness is just you being able to share whatever part of you that comes up. I don't say it will, but
Right.
just as opportunities emerge. So for
Perfect.
business owners, you have to think outside of your brand in a sense. We hear the term think outside the box, but you really have to be multi-dimensional in a sense in your branding way of beingness, and business way of beingness, I should say, is that whenever you are positioned in the marketplace, remember your entire experience, if you're leveraging your life, that is the whole of the marketplace in a
Yeah.
sense. Yeah. And so you just show up organically in these different ways, and you can make your impact and income in that way. So you're thinking in a very uninstitutionalized way and being unconventional. But the royal flush of affluent brand and empire authenticity are the 5 core demonstrations. And so the first one is about the demonstration of the authentic, abundant you. And so, Brenda Lynn, my first published work was called Abundance You Are It, Inner Game Mastery for Emerging Leaders. And I
Yeah.
had no idea when I published that work, and that was back in 2012, what that was actually going to mean in terms of my inner abundance coming forth in such a multi-dimensional way, the way it's played out. I've always been known as the spiritual multiplicity pioneer and been teaching individuals how to be multiplicity-preneurs,
Yeah.
but it grew and it evolved in such a way that my inner abundance came out, which I already had a coaching practice that was called MINI Ways to Abundance. And that actually was kind of the springboard for the publication that I ended up producing, a few years later.
Right.
But when you embody the authentic, abundant you, this is looking at your personal and your professional brand and allowing it to demonstrate wholeness through the true nature of abundance. And you want to represent that, because if people want to come to know, like, and trust you and to buy into you, I would think, Brenda Lynn, and correct me if I'm wrong, that most people want to either follow someone or buy into someone who in somewhat not just looks like they have their stuff together,
Yeah,
but they can tell authentically that they do, that there's a certain level of wholeness and a certain level of abundance that's coming through. Would you agree?
absolutely. Yeah. You want to learn from somebody who's been there, done that.
Yeah, right. And someone too is demonstrating something that you desire.
Yeah.
And most people are going to desire to live an abundant life, and not necessarily abundance in terms of it's just financially focused. It is just, we can be abundant in gratitude. There's a
Yeah.
lot of different layers and levels to abundance. But
And I
when
think
you,
that people are really starving to be able to show up in the truth of who they are, like with
right,
all of that
right,
authenticity.
mhm,
People are sick of playing roles,
right,
putting on a costume every morning and going to a
right.
boardroom or going to the office or doing this and pretending that that's all of who you are. And
Mhm,
I find that in my group of clients and friends and family is people are just tired of that.
right,
They
right,
want to
right.
be real. They want to be whole, and they
Mhm.
want the world to see them in that light.
Right, right, right. And
So,
that is demonstrating the true nature of abundance.
yeah,
Because,
absolutely.
when you have those different levels, the important levels that are fulfilled, just like we hear our health is our wealth, so to speak.
Yeah,
There are many people who may be wealthy, but then they're not really healthy, and that's not really operating in true abundance. And being a brand and a business owner, so to speak, your personal and professional brand, they work together like a hand in glove. So even though someone can be showing up online and demonstrating how abundant they are, but how are they actually obtaining their abundance? Are they staying up late at night? Are they really worried about how they're going to make it? We don't really know what
burning
goes
themselves
on.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, what goes
Hating,
on
hating
behind the
every
scenes.
minute of their workday. I can't tell you how many people hate going to work.
Right.
Yeah.
They're making the money, but but
It's not an
they
abundant
kind of
life.
resent it. Right. And so that's not really true abundance, or that's not authentic, because sometimes you can paint a picture of something that people may think they want, but if they don't understand what that could cost them in order to get
Yeah.
that. So is your personal and professional brand, is it demonstrating an example of wholeness, as I mentioned, through
Yeah.
what the true nature, of abundance is? And the thing about it is that you can't really step into being affluent unless you first embody holistic abundance. And once you understand the true nature of authentic abundance, then you can start to create from that place in your business. And this will give you that, what I call the affluent, authentic brand and empire advantage, in the marketplace. And this is
Yeah.
what will set you apart. So, the second one is showing up and demonstrating a multi-missionpreneurial brand expression. And as I mentioned, Brenda Lynn, early on, that I teach being a brand expression versus a traditional brand. The
Yeah.
traditional brand is around having a core focus, so to speak, and branding yourself around that, which doesn't really leave much room for evolution as a person and a professional, because individuals come to know people just to identify them in that one brand identity. Where when you have how can I say, you have a multi-mission entrepreneurial type of expression, you realize that you're here for more than just one purpose or one calling. And you don't allow yourself to get boxed into just the one brand identity, even though you may have signature focuses for sure that you leverage, but most people can come to know you, or at least that you can segue in them into other aspects of you. So I guess the best way to say this, the way that I've been teaching it over the years, I normally take people through the second coming of their brand expression or the second coming of their entrepreneurship, which involves an all-around entrepreneur, or what I call also multiplicity-preneurship.
Yeah.
And you know this because this is the aspect that allows you to diversify, multiply, maximize, and then ultimately monetize not just your brand and business, but it is your multi-mission-preneurship, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah, so you know all about that. And before we close out, we'll talk a little bit about how people can really jumpstart, with this. Now, the third one is your authentic multi-trades affluent wow factor. And I have different acronyms for the wow statement, so to speak. Normally it stands for your worthwhile, that's outstanding works. But when we're talking about affluence and sort of high-end expression, it's really about your wealthy, opulent works and being able to display these in the marketplace. But you actually can't do that until you embody the abundance aspect of you, as I mentioned, and then seeing yourself in these different dimensions, being a multi-mission, individual. So then once you do that, you're going to come up with what are going to be your higher end, your higher signature works or your signature expressions. And that's going to give you the wow factor, because you need a wow factor to stand out. Because if you don't have one, then you're just in the sea of sameness, and people can just go to any and everybody if there's nothing about you that's like, wait, what? Wow,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then the fourth one is the core demonstration of the total empire of you. And this allows your personal and professional brand expression to operate from that holistic empire state of mindset, of course, but also a way of beingness as a brand and a business. And that's the thing, Brenda Lynn, in terms of leveraging your life as a niche and using these different components, is that when it's a way of beingness, you honestly don't feel like you're like in business. So you don't have to like box things into, or have to fit
Yeah.
it into this framework. It's just that you have created an abundance of whatever you were guided to create, and then you can just use your life's experiences to be able to help assist other people. And that's still all your business in a sense, because it's just, again, in a very unconventional way, because you're just leveraging yourself as the empire. Then the last one is become, and I mean BEE, as in like be a bee,
Yeah.
become your own industry. And you start to evolve in what I call your cross industries preneurial authority, so that you can start to cross pollinate and cross dominate by positioning yourself as, we can say, it's the honeypot or the honey hive, so to speak,
Yeah.
and be that go-to, not just authority, all authority for several areas of your expertise. So basically you become the industry crossover promised land. And so you can relate to this because you, through our mentoring, have created different segments of your, not just your areas of expertise, but you've used different areas, of your life. So you've
Yeah.
published. Go ahead if you want to share some of, those categories that you show up in, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And like my career was as a finance executive. I had a hobby of just in my own healing and ascension process.
Right.
I worked with energies, with vibration, with the chakras, but that was kind of over here, and it was more in my mind designated as a hobby. It went into the hobby compartment, and instead of the professional compartment,
Right.
And I lived like that for many, 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 many years. And then after, through working with you, all of a sudden, all these different aspects of my life started, the compartments disappeared and everything started becoming integrated. So as you know, I have been integrating the chakra stuff into a lot of the work that I do, even helping people create abundance and prosperity and working through the finance side of things. All comes through with vibration, and it's so absolutely relevant in today's world, especially. And then just fairly recently, another hobby I had was painting, was the artwork, and that's come into more of the professional stance where I've got my artwork up for sale. I've done some trainings with you around the art. I've written a book with the stories. Most of my artwork was downloaded. They came with a story, and then the story said, now paint this, sort of thing. And so that's how a lot of my artwork came into being. And it was part of a healing journey. So there's a lot of healing energy just within the artwork itself. And so I wrote the stories into a book, and I've published the book on that. And the book leads to people, wanting to buy those images in some format, and I've got it up for sale in multiple formats. And then just this week, just recently, I woke up with a message in my meditation to write a book for my 6-year-old granddaughter. Really, it took me, because we use KDP and because it's so easy and it just flows now that I'm in that zone of just allowing things to come through. So the plans that I had for Monday disappeared. I sat down, I started writing. I had the whole book written in a couple days, and it's just in for review and being published on Amazon. And it's just this beautiful book for a 6-year-old. It's a chapter book. It's really for more of a 10-year-old, but the stories incorporate all of the stuff that I teach people, but in a language that works for 6 to 10-year-olds,
And so
some about empathy and emotional intelligence and joy and diversity, and all of those lessons that I teach in the corporate realm just flowed through into this book for a little girl is turned. So it's it's very exciting to be able to be doing something different every day, but it's still all part of the brand expression of me.
Absolutely. And it's that prism. It's a multifaceted aspect, and that does represent the level of your allness in terms of that being true for you, that's not a part of you that's not being expressed, because it is. And again, when individuals can create different levels of products, and what I recommend, and Brenda Lynn, this because this is what you've been, creating too over the years, is that you don't have to produce like big books or long trainings, so to speak. These can be what I call just micro messengers or mini books, low to medium content. And even if you do some type of training or so, they can be 10 to 15 minutes, 30 minutes. They can be master classes that you offer for just, specific focuses. If you have
and that's a really good point. People today, there's so much going on in the world, and people are just overwhelmed with so much stuff hitting them that they don't have time to sit down and do these big, long trainings. So what I used to teach in 6 weeks, 2 hours a week, I've distilled that down to a couple of really like 6 modules of micro trainings. And that they can take one module. It takes them maybe half an hour to go through, 15 minutes to half an hour to go through, and then they're done. And so everybody can find a way to fit that into their life, because if they had to embark on something that was really heavy and long, they aren't going to make the space for it. They can make a space for a 15-minute training if it's something that's important to them. So we do it because it's nice for us to do these very different lengths of things, but also for the audience, this just really fits with the new world.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. And that's the thing in the new world. And since, this platform is around being able to bring your brilliance, is that your brilliance is reflected in different ways. It's not just like one core thing. And to show up brilliantly as who you are, you want to be able to broadcast who you are to the world. And when I say broadcast, it's more of an energetic, vibrational thing. It's not necessarily telling everybody that you do these different things. It is just that you're showing up in a way. And before we
You're
close
doing
out,
them.
Gwendolyn,
Yeah.
go ahead. I was going
It's
to
just that you're doing
go
them.
ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. An example is like I had a background, and this background was not from formal training or anything. It's that I somehow would gravitate these little puppies, and I would always be in a place where or a position, I should say, where I wouldn't be able to adopt the dog or care for it myself. I would either be in properties where they didn't allow pets, at least
Yeah.
not long term or so, but I was a transitionary pet expert, if you will, and not by trade. It was just happening.
Just by passion.
And because I had years of this experience, in a sense, that it didn't matter what state I was in, I could go to different places, and somehow I would end up connecting with individuals who either found a lost dog or something happened where they got a pet or so. It was just, and
Yeah.
people just started coming to me, strangers and or people that I might have known that, but they had no idea that I had kind of a background in that.
Right.
And so once that kept happening chronically, and I kept having to speak with people about and tell them what to do. I later just produced a blog that gave that information, and then also put that I was available for being able to help do mentoring, and especially if they needed to have transitioning aspect, or they wanted to understand the adoption process, because I did go through all of these different things with different people.
Yeah.
And so again, that was just an area of my life that was just a random area in a sense, but it kept continuously happening. But I was able to then be able to make that into an impact in an income initiative. And so again, it's just various little things like that in your life that you have to look and pay attention to. And you will have those rendezvous. And so for me, when I started having the gravitation of different areas that would come up, then because I have products produced and I got, the experience to know to start producing content, low to medium, content to produce that, then when that started happening more frequently, then I could direct people to that. And then you can imagine, Brenda Lynn, in an online space where, SEO, if you have the right keywords, it's going to key people into different topics. And
Yeah.
so when you have a multi-interest focus, in a sense that you can serve different markets and different industry needs, then you can come up for a variety of different things. And some of the platforms that we've used throughout the years, Live Journal is one that I would use, blogspot.com, or it's blogger.com. You get a blogspot URL, and then tumblr.com. Those were platforms that I used for sub platforms. And the good thing about those platforms is they allow you to have several blogs underneath one account. So I think Blogspot, you can have up to 100. Tumblr, you could probably have several hundred under there. But just imagine if you've got more than one email address that you use, and you can have that many blogs, which is not necessary. I don't even teach people to create in that level of abundance. That was kind of unique to my branding. But even if they had 3 to 5 areas that they could demonstrate their allness, then they could use those platforms. Because I know, Brenda Lynn, some are probably wondering, well, do you build all these websites out for these different things? That seems expensive. And it's like, no, you can use free, you can use free sites. You can actually create platforms even within an article. You can make an article, a landing page, or create a Facebook page or so that is for a specific thing. But what I do more so now, that I didn't do over when I was first teaching this about a decade ago or so, is now I teach people to build their own marketplaces, build your own Amazon in a sense, be your own super Walmart, so to speak, or Walmart supercenter, where people understand the type of experience that they're having. That's where you can actually bring your allness to the table in that way if you want to showcase multiple things that you do. But if you're just going to be in your kind of your just branding advantage and you want to stand out maybe for something signature, then you can have a core focus, but you do want to create from your sphere of abundance so that you can then spiderweb and segue people, to that. And this is what gives you that advantage, Brenda Lynn, is because you're not limited to just that one niche. You have different focuses that you can segue people to.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
You've got so many different things that it's hard to explain how much it opens up your life
Right.
when you can tap into everything that you are. And the other thing that it does is makes you realize the depth of your personality, the depth of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Because we tend to get conditioned to thinking that we're only this one thing. And when you can
Mm-hmm.
really tap into all of you, you start uncovering expertise that you didn't ever know you
Yeah,
had.
right,
Like
right.
the perfect example this week, I never intended to write books this is kind of for that young preteen age.
Mm-hmm.
Never. It never even crossed my mind. I didn't think that I had the ability to really communicate with young kids like that. I'm good communicating with executives. And then I got this message in my meditation and I learned to listen to those. And then
Mm-hmm.
I started writing, and now like it's just opened up this whole thing.
Right.
The way the book came out, I thought, wow, I can take all of my work now, all of
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that I teach to executives, and I can distill it down into a format where I can actually teach those emotional intelligence skills, emotional consciousness and managing emotions and the chakra stuff and, shifting your vibration. I can teach all of that stuff now to preteens, which is where you really need to be teaching kids. You
Mm-hmm.
need to give them these skills that they can use throughout life. And I didn't realize that I had an expertise in that, but it's coming out as I
Well, yeah,
really
you
embrace this
do,
aspect of
because you're
me.
cross-trained. Life has cross-trained you
Yeah,
in so many different areas. And that's the thing, is that we're not in our lives enough. But whenever you allow your life to be your niche, it puts you in your life where you have to be present. You have to be conscious of it. I teach individuals about becoming the journalist of their lives.
yeah,
When you can become the journalist of your life, then you are able to go through and be the observer and to be able to create the story or capture the story of your life and then be able to bring it back and make it public friendly. I do have a background
yeah,
in independent journalism, and cross industries journalism, where you be able to dissect yourself. It's really three categories that I tell people that they need to really look at in embody, in being a journalist, being an anchor, and being the biologist too of your life. But
yeah,
when you start with being the journalist and then you become the biologist and do kind of the dissecting of your life, then you can be the anchor. You can come back and broadcast in different ways, whether it is through writing, whether it's through product speaking. However, you can break up your life in these ways to see it, and then you're going to realize you are skilled in so many different areas. But at the same
yes,
time, as mentioned before, you don't have to be an expert and an authority. You need to be an expert and authority of your life. So when you know your life, you know yourself. That's the point of being able to discover yourself in this way, so that you can have the advantage of leveraging these different aspects and areas of your life. When you only need to be the one or two steps expert ahead of somebody, that's what you'll be. When you know
yeah,
a little bit more than the average person does, and you can do that intermediate, middle ground expert, that's what you need to do. But
yeah,
one thing I will say, and I just want to say this, Brenda Lynn, is even with you with publishing, doing the work with the children's. Now, you could turn right around and be able to share with someone how you got started with the process.
Right.
And so you don't have to be an expert there. And then as this process or that experience evolves, you're going to progress to another level. Then you could possibly come back and then share what that level is. And then once you've done this a few more times, then you will be more at, if you want to call it expert levelers, you can say, I've got this many books under my belt for this particular format of writing. So that's how people have to look at their experiences, is that you don't wait till you become an expert. You just share from the level that you're on at that time. If you're practicing self-care, you don't have to be a self-care authority to empower someone to take better care of themselves. You can share with them 3 to 5 things that you do, or something that you could do also just in any other area, is that what are the things that you wish that you would have known, whether you've been through a divorce, whether you've had trial and error with these different things? What are things that you wish you would have known before you got into this profession? How can you help someone else with that? So people have to look at that. And then there's the free platforms that people can use, like Kindle Direct Publishing. There's gumroad.com that people can use to upload products. People can use Zoom recordings just to record themselves, for different products. So Brenda Lynn, there's no limitations here in how you can bring your allness to the marketplace by leveraging this way. And this certainly is an advantage for sure.
Right. Well, thank you so much, AliNICOLE. This was just the perfect timing for people to start to move into their authenticity. And you described it very, very well. I love your royal flush. That's something I haven't heard from you. And so I learned something new today, and I'm sure the audience did as well. So thank you so much for joining me here and for sharing all of your beautiful wisdom with me and with the audience. I will include links to the notes on this video so people know where to find you if they wanted to get more information from you.
And I appreciate being here. Thank you so much. And I'm so proud of you for the allness that you are demonstrating through your brilliance that you're bringing to this new world. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. We'll do this again.